held their mini-thons along with the Millersburg Parent-Teacher Organization. And the event overall raised over $11,000 for childhood cancer research through the Four Diamonds Foundation. Yesterday, April 4th, Mrs. Klinger and Mrs. Barkovich took the sophomore class and several other students on a field trip to Washington, D.C., where they visited Arlington Cemetery, the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, and the Jefferson Memorial. They also observed the 87% eclipse that was happening in the Capitol. And the Conservation Club took a small stocking trip yesterday. The high school's newly formed Future Business Leaders of America Club is currently attending the Pennsylvania chapter's leadership conference. They'll be there through tomorrow, I believe. And the district's music teachers are preparing for their upcoming band and chorus concerts. Mrs. Slemmer's middle school ensembles are performing April 16th, Mr. Slemmer's elementary ensembles are performing April 18th, and Mr. Campbell's high school ensembles are performing April 21st.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Board presentations. First one is our audit presentation from Boyer and Ritter.
Yes. All right. I'm going to move over here so I'm not kind of talking to the back of your heads if you're looking at the screen. Try to stand off to the side for you. So my name's Sinai Zahirovich. I go by Z, principal with Boyer and Ritter, the one responsible for oversight of the district's annual audit. I certainly appreciate your time this evening and giving me the opportunity to present the annual audit results for you. So before I do dive into those results, I just want to lay kind of a foundation for the audit, just talk a little bit about the why, what, and how as it relates to the audit. So you might ask yourself, why does the district need an audit? Basically, bullet points here. PD, Pennsylvania Department of Education, requires it of all school districts throughout the Commonwealth. The federal government requires it whenever a district or any other organization spends more than $750,000 of federal money. This past year, the district spent about $2 million of federal funds. Bondholders, bond rating agencies. So because the district has issued some debt, bonds, there are disclosure requirements within those that require audited financial statements. And then last but not least, you all, the board of directors. I think you have a vested interest in the financial operations of the district as you go about governing the district throughout the year. Moving on. Second slide here, the what or the scope of the audit. So you might ask yourself, what does our audit cover? Essentially, it's everything that is reported to you. So all the funds that you see here listed, most importantly the general fund, as that's the largest fund of the district, but all the other ones get attention through our audit process as well. In addition to that, there's something that's in the financial report that maybe you don't see throughout the course of the year, and that's the government-wide financial statements, which include long-term assets and long-term liabilities, some of which I have listed there for you. I'll touch on some of these in a later slide. Then the how. So basically, what is the audit process? We look at it as a three-phase process. During our planning and execution, we're evaluating internal controls, any potential risks, and developing our procedures to test the numbers that go in the financial report. Then ultimately, it's pulling everything together that we've gathered from the business office and other sources of information into the financial report that's presented to you all, as well as made available to the public to review. Okay, so we'll dive into the results. So basically, Boyer and Ritter, as the auditor of the district, is responsible for 3 audit reports. They make up about 8 pages of the 80 or so page document. The first one is related to the audit of the financial statements. The other 2 are related to what is called a compliance audit or a single audit. As I mentioned, that's required when you spend more than $750,000 of federal money. This first report on the financial statements starts with really what's the most important part of it, and that is the opinion. As you can see there, I have it identified as an unmodified opinion. In other terms, it's a clean opinion. It's really the best possible result that we as an audit firm can issue on a set of financial statements. And they basically the opinion basically states that the financial statements are reported fairly and accurately in all material respects. So that's a good thing, as the green thumbs up indicates. I'm going to skip over the other items there and just jump to the last paragraph, which is on the third page of our audit report. And that references the audit report that we issue in accordance with the government auditing standards. So that's the second of the three. We'll move to that one next. So this one, basically what we have here, a report in accordance with the government auditing standards. On the first page of that report, we identify, let's see, so we have our report, it's kind of broken up into two parts. First page is a report on internal control over financial reporting. Second report of that, or the second page of it, is a report on non-compliance in relation to financial reporting. So in the first part of it, we did identify a significant deficiency in internal control. That's described for you on page 75. Basically what I can say about that is it arose due to a unique set of circumstances this year. The school district underwent a complete overhaul of its accounting system, as well as had this, I think it's over here,
Yes.
significant construction project going on. So because of those two things kind of all happening at once, it resulted in this item that we have identified in the report.
Was this the July entry that needed to be put back in June?
Yep, so there were some transactions and information that came in after the year end, as Eric mentioned, in July, maybe even in August, that had to be posted back to the June year-end financial reporting, and that's kind of what that relates to.
Yeah, and some of the other fun, I'm sorry to jump in, but some of the other fun things here that went along with the building project and the ESSER funds were, you know, when we went into this, and I didn't know any better, but we had to, as I mentioned last week, this shouldn't have ever touched the general fund, the ESSER funds, but it did. So there's some other entries that go on here where you have a pay to and due from fund kind of thing that goes on to either record things to the general or take them out of the general back to the capital projects. And this was just one that came in after the end of the year and needed to be put back. So that I'll take my punishment for that.
Minor, I think it's already been resolved.
It is.
Yeah, not going to see an issue with that again next year. If you just go back, I'll just highlight the second part of that report, identifying no instances of non-compliance in relation to the financial statements. So the financial statements are prepared and presented in accordance with any laws, regulations, or agreements that might be required. We'll go on to the third and final report. Now this one is specific to the major federal program that we selected for testing this year. That was the Education Stabilization Funds, the COVID monies, which accounted for about 1.2 million of the 2 million or so of federal spending. This report identifies, again, an unmodified or clean opinion, similar to the first report. Second page of that, we do identify within an other matters paragraph, second to last bullet point, items 2023-002 and 003, which were a couple of findings that were identified through our testing of the compliance requirements, but none of which impacted the ultimate result, the opinion, which was an unmodified opinion. So an occurrence of something was identified, but it didn't impact the overall opinion.
And see, I think, just to give the board a little more detail on this, if I remember correctly, I think this was the quarterly reports
Right.
that were not submitted back in September, I think it was.
Yes.
So the board will, I'm sure, recall, we were in transition at that time with a federal program coordinator that left and one that replaced that person. And I can tell you that Mr. Leiter and I worked hard to wrap our heads around what we were just handed. And so, yeah, the September quarterly report did not get submitted. They all have been since then, and we are all up to date, up to speed. Everything's good there.
Yep. All right, we'll go on here. So those three reports are kind of what we are responsible for. If you go to the next slide. The rest of what I have listed here is kind of a summary of the table of contents that you'll see in the financial report. And really, this is the responsibility of the management team. We, of course, assist in kind of pulling a lot of this information together. I'm not going to bore you and go through all these pages, but I just wanted to provide you this slide. If you're going to spend some time in the financial statements, I would recommend looking at that first section, the management discussion and analysis. Of course, budget to actual, that's always important. Pages 29 through 62 are your footnotes. I've identified some of the more significant, important footnotes that are included if you want to get some more information on these items that are listed here. And then the very bottom is the single audit reporting, including the CFA or the scheduled expenditures of federal awards that you can peruse. Go to the next one. So I skipped over all the financial statement stuff, but I felt like if we're going to talk about the audit, we gotta at least talk about the numbers a little bit. So starting off, the general fund, as you can see here, listed out for you the last 4 years, including the 2023 budget. So you can kind of see some of the trends there. As we would expect, as you might expect, revenues and expenses have increased over the previous year. General inflation, right, costs just about of everything have gone up. But also included here, we have some capital outlay expenditures that haven't existed in the past, as well as debt service, which is a bit higher than years before, and that debt service obviously related to the bonds that the district has issued. Ultimately, ending fund balance in the general fund about $4.5 million at the end of the year. Next couple of funds, capital reserve, capital projects. Not a whole lot of activity in the capital reserve. You can see their ending fund balance, or basically what equates to the cash and investments available at the end of the year, $3.5 million in that fund. And then capital projects, you see kind of last 2 years, there's a lot of activity, none before. That's because that fund is being used to record the issuance of the new debt in order to pay for the building project out here. So ultimately, that fund ended the year with a fund balance of 12.8. Again, the cash and investments available to be spent. Next, we have here the food service, the cafeteria. Basically came in at a break even. You see that change in net position, $137. Local revenues are working their way back up to kind of the pre-COVID numbers. That's happening as the reduced and free lunches have been phased out. In relation to that, the state and federal revenues have decreased. Ending fund balance in that one about $175,000.
And just to note, you had recently approved the expenditure of some cafeteria equipment items, which will be coming out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, and Z, correct me if I'm wrong, but ultimately you want your food service fund to be self-sustaining.
Right.
So you don't necessarily want this to be making
No.
tons of money, but you don't want it to lose money either. So $137 change is perfect.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, as long as there's a little bit of funds left to purchase those new equipment items that are going to be needed eventually. But to Eric's point, something around that break-even point is kind of where you want to be with the food service. All right, last slide of numbers. This is kind of bringing some of the most significant numbers together in a summary form for you. So cash and cash equivalents, you can see 22.6. Capital assets, a right to use assets, so your building, land, equipment, and so on. Net of depreciation, of course, about 18 million. Debt, that's the 3 debt issuances that are outstanding, about 21.5 million outstanding on those. Payments on those, I think, go out through 2049. Rest of the items there, they're basically just accounting calculations. Nothing all too important for you guys to worry about. They have to be reported in the financial statements as required, going back to PDE as required by them. So that's your pension liability, OPEB, and so forth down the list there.
Eric, are those subscription liabilities, is that like software renewals and so forth?
They are, yes. And that was a new GASB
Yes. So,
rule. So
exactly.
I'll let
So
you speak
in the
to that.
past, subscription liabilities were not reported on the financial statements, at least not on the front of the financial statements as a liability. This past year, with the implementation of GASB number 96, which is called Subscription-Based Information Technology Arrangements, or SPITAs, that was issued by GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, required that we evaluate these subscription liabilities for IT, software, and so forth, do a calculation, basically a net present value of them, and then they go on the front financial statements in your government-wide statement as a liability and an offsetting right-to-use asset.
Is that, and then Eric, is that, those are software packages of, you know, the accounting software and so forth, but is that also items that we get from the IU or their
It could,
Cisco
yeah.
renewals?
It could,
Things like that.
and generally, I think it's the multi-year
Yes.
programs that are
Exactly.
on that list.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the one-year deal is not included in this number, it's just the multi-year arrangements.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the numbers. Couple of other items that would be provided to you are in the form of 2 letters. There's the required communications letter. As you can see here, I've just identified or highlighted some of those items that are included. All these I feel are positive, so you know, there were no uncorrected misstatements. Any adjustment found throughout the audit process has been included in the financial report for you. We obviously didn't have any disagreements with management. Eric and his whole team have been very helpful throughout the process each year that we've had the opportunity to work with them, so all good on that front. No other significant issues or difficulties encountered. The other letter, management comment letter, that just letting you know, as well as Eric and his team know, some of the other items that are coming down the pipeline that we're going to have to evaluate in future years. Something like compensated absences is another Governmental Accounting Standards Board pronouncement that's been issued, so we'll have to take a look at that, make sure that gets implemented into the financial statements correctly.
Yeah, and the capitalization, we're going to be having you guys do that, the asset.
Yeah, working with you to maintain the capital asset listing.
Right,
Yeah.
so it should streamline that process a little more too.
Certainly. That's all I had. Questions, comments, happy to answer them now. My contact info if you need to reach out in the future.
Thank you.
You must
Thank
have done a
you.
good job.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think Z and Boyer and Ritter, they are absolutely fantastic to work with. They are a joy to have here. And I can tell you, you know, even beyond the audit, I call, text, email Z, like, if I come up with one of my Eric ideas, like, hey Z, how do I do this? And, you know, he'll get back to me or talk to someone else and, yeah, Eric, I don't think you can do that.
I appreciate the idea, but let's go a different route.
Yeah, so, no, I'm extremely happy with Boyer and Ritter and Z and his team, and they're just fabulous, and they do exactly what we want them to do. You know, if we make a mistake, they find it and help us fix it, so it's why we pay them.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think next on the list is Mr. Petrie still at the seat.
Yep, we're just, this is a quick hitter, I promise. Next month, not so much, but this one's quick. So again, we're moving on to part 2 of our budget presentation. You recall we looked at the recap last week, and Z just gave you the audit report on that. So if you noticed in the numbers, you know, again, we finished about 254,000 revenues over expenditures. So now this week we want to take a look at, hey, where do we think we're going to end this year? And I can tell you I've done this now several times. I originally did this in February, and then we got to the end of the month for March, so we uploaded the March actuals, and you have to go back in then and tweak everything. This isn't, you know, these numbers aren't 100% system generated. So what happens is it will look at your budget and the past 5 years and what the percent of your budget is that you either receive or spend in a given month. And it will project a trend of what it thinks you're going to earn or spend that month. We sometimes know, like, when that trend is off, especially when you're dealing with ESSER funds. You know, anytime you see an ESSER fund hit in there, it throws off trends. So we upload the actuals, we go in, and then every line by line by line, we go in there and tweak and make sure that we're projecting as best we can where we think we're going to end. So right now, it looks like we're going to be expenditures over revenues by 212,000. And you think, oh my gosh, Eric, that's terrible. Yeah, it's not great, but if you remember our budget, we thought we were gonna almost be $1 million deficit. So a lot of work happened to get us here to the 212 mark. I can tell you, the first time I did this Part 2 presentation, I did it with the February actuals and 4 months of projections. And at the end of February, that number was 218. So it didn't move a whole lot. So, you know, obviously the closer we get to the end of the year, the more confident we're going to be in that number. You know, as always, it's a projection. Things can and will happen. But as of March 31st, with the March actuals loaded and looking line by line every account for the rest of the year, as of now, this is my best guess of where we're going to finish this year. So what does that mean? As Z mentioned, we finished around 4.5 in fund balance. If that number holds, that will come back out of there. So if you remember last week's presentation, I showed you like a history of our fund balance, and you know, most years we're adding a little bit, but there was one year, I think in 2018, I was like, oh, well, here was a year we needed to use 200,000. So it isn't like it never happens, and our best guess at this point is that's where we're going to end up. So taking those numbers, the projected end of year numbers, those certainly will factor into the building of the budget, which I will be presenting to you at the May work session. And this is just a little additional item, because some of you may be thinking, yeah, well, you're trusting trends. Well, yes, 5 years of them, and you can see here up at the top, the blue are your monthly actuals, your orange is your trend, and sometimes it can be off a little bit, but for the most part, now this one, I can tell you what this one is. We received a ton of ESSER money in February. So you can see how it'll throw your trends off a little bit, but when you take those abnormal federal things out that we've been dealing with since COVID, generally it's pretty close. Same over here on the expenditure side. Your blue are your actual expenditures, red are what is predicted. And again, they're pretty close. So I guess what I'm telling you is I'm feeling more and more confident that, we're looking at maybe a $200,000 loss. Anything can happen, we'll keep digging at it, but I even went in there and adjusted the projections of our interest. We've been doing very well with our interest earnings, and it was projecting a little low on that, so I upped that, but it's kind of our best guess at this point. Any questions on that?
That, the forecast, does that include that truck purchase?
I'm sorry?
Does that include the truck purchase?
It includes assuming we are not going to spend the money that's budgeted for the truck this year. Does that make sense? So the truck was budgeted for 23-24.
Yeah.
It's adjusted to assume we are not spending that money this year.
It's not gonna get
That
spent.
expenditure won't occur until after
We'll hit
July
next year.
1st. Right.
Okay.
So you will
That's
see
not
it,
inclusive,
you
okay.
will see it
It'll be
again in
budgeted
next year's
year.
budget,
Okay.
but for once we actually do intend to spend it. So we've been carrying that in the budget for
Right.
years.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next item, we have approval of minutes. We have the minutes for the Ed Policy meeting, that was on March 19th. The minutes of our regular monthly meeting from March 19th, and the work session on April 3rd. I have a motion to approve. Mr. Enders, second, Mr. Mongold. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Enders Mongold, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Special Ed Supervisory Report, Mrs. Hornick.
Hello, everybody. Continue to attend IEP meetings. Our Jumpstart Cafe continues to run every Wednesday, serving teachers, and is also open to students every Friday. The Life Skills Classroom will be helping with cleanup at the community gardens at the Mayo for their community-based instruction trip this month. The special education plan for 2024 is completed and posted to the website. I thank all of you for reviewing the plan. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Owen?
Hello, good evening. So my notes you should have there, but just to highlight a few things, we are packing up. It looks like a fort over there. So we have all of our boxes coming in. Thank you to Mr. Troutman, who's helped coordinate that, brought it in. Thank you to all the teachers who are working tirelessly. It is like a little sweatshop over there. Some days everybody's taking walls down. It's a lot of stuff you can accumulate in, however many years. A lot of them are 20, 30 years teachers. So working hard to get that ready. Last round of diagnostics is happening, so we push them to do before PSSAs so that teachers could use that data to drive instruction as we get ready, and they'll kind of have an idea then of how students are going to do and see where they can help support them to help them feel confident going into testing at the end of this month. Poster contest for PSSAs are going, and I got some beautiful artists in our building, so that stack is building in my office, so we're excited about that. We have a pep rally coming up also, again, just to support students, get them excited about demonstrating their hard work all year and showing what they've done. So thank you to Mrs. Everhard, who are bringing some high school students over to help with all the activities and fun stuff that will be going on next Monday. Purple Up Day is coming on April 17th, where we're going to support and recognize our military families, so take out your purple that day. And then a super thank you to Mrs. Eggleston. She works every year and puts together a phenomenal Earth Day program, and this year she has done the same, so we are looking forward to that on April 19th. Any questions for me?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Hello, everyone. So first up, our mini-thon for middle school was amazing. Ms. Carter and student council, they did a wonderful job planning all the activities. We had lots of cool stuff. We had a video game truck. They had a big blow-up Gaga ball pit. So students, it was a great day. Congratulations to our Science Olympiad team. They did very, very well at Millersville. Before we left for Easter break, we had our end of third quarter reward day. That was where they attempted to tape me to the wall. I didn't stick. They grossly underestimated how fat I am with the pieces of tape. They would not go all around my torso, so it held my arms pretty good. The rest didn't work so well. They actually raised an additional $295 for Mini-Thon by buying additional whipped cream for the pies for the teachers and additional tape. So I thought that was pretty cool. We're moving into fourth quarter already. It's crazy, I can't believe it. We're doing our final push toward PSSA, which is happening in 2 weeks. And we're gonna kick that off with a pep rally on April 19th. Currently working on some different activities and things. Student Council's got some good plans for that. May 9th, We're going to hold move-up day at the middle school for our 4th graders moving into 5th, and our 5th moving into 6th grade. We're going to do a Summer Olympics, kind of Paris French theme, so that should be a pretty interesting day. Our middle school band and chorus concert, that's going to take place next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. And then last thing on my list is our Rotary Students of the Month, and that is Lillian Ravenhold and Brinley Morrison. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Ms. Sandusky?
Good evening. So Bryson, I'm just gonna go off of a lot of what you said, because you said a lot of the great things that are happening in the high school. So first, course selection process. We are starting to input the students' selections this week, so we can get the scheduling process for next year underway. Again, our goal is to hopefully have a very big start to that so that we can start letting students know their schedule for next year as soon as possible. Junior Achievement was here for the STEM Summit Friday, April 5th. The 9th and 10th graders participated in that. National Honor Society students helped lead that. We got overwhelming number of feedback from the community members that volunteered of how amazing our students are. So I can't say that enough. We got, I got some private messages from parents that came in and volunteered, as well as the Junior Achievement staff, just saying how our students and volunteers, that they were engaged, they were well behaved, very polite and respectful, and they were very impressed with our students. So I want to make sure that everybody knows how great our student body is and how proud I am of them, and to be their principal for that. Mini-thon, yes, was very successful. They are cutting my hair. So officially on April 19th, we are just going to the last 10 minutes of the middle school PSSA pep rally. We will have a student from elementary come. They will get to cut a ponytail. The student that raised the most in middle school and high school will also get to cut a ponytail. So there will be a little over 8 inches all around cut off of my hair to donate to children with hair loss. So that's fun. Kids have been asking since Mini-thon. They think they're shaving my head, which is not happening, but I am donating a little over 8 inches to children with hair loss, which was a great incentive for our students to go above their goal of $10,000. So very proud of them for that, and I am proudly donating my hair on behalf of them. As Bryson mentioned, the Conservation Club have been stocking the streams. They went out March 26th and April 8th. They will go again on May 1st. I did try to upload pictures of Mini-thon, the Conservation Club, the field trip to DC. I don't think they showed up on the board thing, but I will figure it out and make sure that you guys all get to see the pictures, and they will be posting sporadically on social media as well, to show the great things that our students are doing and how much fun they are having while they are communicating with each other and learning on all these amazing trips. So with that being said, the trip to DC yesterday was mentioned already. The students were provided with eclipse classes, and they got to experience the eclipse while they were near the memorial. So I'm sure that was a great experience for them that they'll remember as well. Let's see, I don't want to repeat. FBLA is at the state conference. I can't wait to hear all about that. From what I have heard, they're having a great time and doing some awesome things. Signing day is for athletes this Friday, but Mr. Kulik will be talking a little bit more about that on his report. County Chorus Concert will take place Saturday, April 13th at 2:30 p.m. at the Forum in Harrisburg. We have 15 vocalists chosen to participate. So 15 students out the size of our school is pretty large number. So if you can support them and attend that concert April 13th at 2:30, please do so, because that's amazing achievement to have that many students representing Millersburg there. The FBLA Career Fair is April 17th. And as mentioned before, just to highlight again, our high school band and chorus concert, April 21st. And a congratulations to our April Rotary students, Haley Zeibler and Isabel Pelenik. And I believe I said all those names right this time. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Kulik?
Hi, everyone. So since I saw you last spring sports started, we hosted our first track event. Went well, track held up great. We hosted it with West Shore. Next home track meet is April 16th. So I've been asked to present, Coach Stefan asked me to ask you about new pole vault poles. So they're between $600 and $1,000 a piece, and they're asking for one for every weight category. Apparently the ones we have right now are not doing well. So that's what they're asking for. Their total, so they sent me a link, their total is $3,670 for the new pole vaults. And then they're also asking for 3 bags for their equipment, and they're $200 a piece. Okay, now from here I don't know what to do. I haven't been asked to do, I haven't been asked to do this yet, so I presented that.
Yeah, so if the board is supportive, I mean, understanding that they were not budgeted items, but if the board is supportive, we'll move forward with John's recommendation.
Yeah, we would have to get that on the agenda for actual approval, but
But I think it's maybe time sensitive.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna ask that,
It's
are
not?
there,
I don't think it's for this year, guys.
Oh.
so the
Oh,
ones they're
they just
using
asked-
are safe?
Yeah, I believe
We're
so.
not gonna have
They're not- it's not an
kids on them?
emergency.
I don't want that in our next report.
So,
Last meet anyways.
As far as I know, this is not, if it's an emergency situation, I'll let you know. You can present it to me as an emergency.
okay,
Just
so this
just-
is something we can budget in next year's
I
budget?
believe so. If
Perfect.
I'm wrong, can I tell you tomorrow?
Sure.
Or
you might get a call tonight.
I don't think it's for this year. I would think they would have said we need it right now.
Yeah,
That was not how that was presented to me. I was just asked to present it to you, so that's what I did.
okay.
Okay?
so it sounds like the board would like to get it on the budget for next year and is
Okay.
supportive of
Right, I
it.
mean,
If that's different, just let us know.
Yeah.
I will let you
like,
know as soon as possible.
Severity of safety,
Yeah.
safety
Yes.
concern is a big concern of mine.
Yes.
So if we could just iron out exactly what that looks like,
You got it.
that would be great.
Yeah, if they need it this year, we need to
Yep, yep,
do
yep.
Okay.
I know Mr. Kulik's working on some budget items for some other sports too, so that would be something that you would include in those budgets.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next one. So the athletic training agreement for next year. So I spoke to the service manager. She's like the head athletic trainer for CPRS. They are losing. Well, they lost $22,000 last year on our athletics through our athletic trainer. Final numbers aren't in for this year yet, but they anticipate a similar loss. They're asking for the rate to go up from $26.50 to $29.15. And they would still be losing approximately $13,000, but they're just trying to close the gap on that.
And that contract has been reviewed by the solicitor's office and will be on in May.
Okay.
For next school year.
Questions?
So we have some kids signing, as she mentioned the signing day. So
Yeah.
we have some kids that are, okay.
Yeah, so I left off, I just put it on today, so you guys don't have the bottom portion of this. So signing day is this Friday. We have 3 student athletes signing. Before I move on, are we good with the athletic trainer? All that was okay? Okay.
I think it is what it is.
Okay, okay. All right, signing day is this Friday, directly after school. We have 3 student athletes signing. Fallon McFadden signing for softball at Penn State Harrisburg. Jana Strait signing to play soccer at Malloy. And Abby Valier signing for cross country and track at Bloomsburg. So congratulations to those 3 student athletes. And then, so I'm not gonna present the last part because Mr. Petrie just said about volleyball. But, so the part that's uncomfortable for me is because I'm also doing the volleyball, junior high volleyball, and the boys volleyball, and I'm also the AD, so I feel like it's a conflict of interest. But, I'd like to at some point have that voted on soonish, and I don't really know what else to say about it.
So what do you mean by
You wanna
voted on?
explain more?
Good.
Yeah.
So, explain what,
What would be voted on?
my interpretation is that it would be voted on, so it would become a PIAA sport for next school year.
Oh, the boys volleyball.
boys volleyball and junior high girls volleyball.
So how are they going?
They're going well, but also you're asking the person running it, so that's the point, but in all honesty, that's the part I don't.
Well, we'll
like.
just trust that you're telling us the truth.
That's the point, we have, in terms of numbers, junior high girls has been right around, like, consistently 28 to 31. Boys has been somewhere between 22 and 26.
So
And I would say, like, it hasn't fluctuated from those numbers. There's never been a day where there's been like 8 and then 30, you know, it's just been consistently those numbers.
What seasons do they play?
Junior high girls would be, they're both spring sports. Junior high girls volleyball is spring, boys volleyball is also spring.
What neighboring schools or would be?
Yes.
We competing?
Yeah, so junior high girls at least has Halifax right now,
Okay.
but they don't have a coach. So they're struggling with that, but they at least have a team who would be able to play them, assuming there's someone that would step in to coach. But there is a club right now too. Everything else would be going to Christian schools or like the Harrisburg area.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Now, I personally heard from some parents, and they're loving it. So keep up the awesome work.
I appreciate that.
It's appreciative.
Appreciate that.
Cool.
Yeah, and the discussions that we've kind of had through email as far as budgeting purposes, you know, I asked him to give me startup costs for the budget and then ongoing cost. And I think where we left our email discussion was pretty much the startup cost would just be uniforms as far as we can think. Like, we already have the equipment and everything like that. And then ongoing, if you can help me, transportation and like officials, game workers, things like that. So doesn't appear at this point that there would be a large capital outlay to make it happen other than uniforms.
And because it would be a spring, because it would be a spring sport, there wouldn't be conflict with gym time. Because next year, we also have middle school basketball going into the winter and like lots of gym time, but that wouldn't be an issue except for maybe some overlap, like playoffs and that sort of thing. Regulation rule, like ceiling, can games be played in the Manning gym? We just choose the Johnson gym because it's.
I don't know why.
Okay.
Yes.
Taller
Yes.
ceiling, I think.
Okay.
It's a foot and a half higher down there, 23 feet versus 21.8 or 21.10 up here.
Higher ceiling, wider there is one. But it's not regulation.
So the height, that's what, I didn't know if the height of the ceiling was like, it has to be so high in order for you. So both gyms could essentially be utilized if things are happening at the same time.
We have, the coach, you're coaching both right now.
Yeah.
How does that look for next year?
I can't do both.
Right.
I can't do both. So, the girls, JV head coach would potentially be the junior high girls coach.
But we could run into the same issue with someone, like, you know, as you did a few years ago, having to step up to coach.
That's right.
Which, thank you, but, you know, we don't want to rely on last minute, whatever, so.
Right.
But I'm sure you'll recruit somebody and work toward that. That would be, we're in the same boat as any
Everyone
small
else.
district of trying to find people with interest. Do you know how many games that season
So
typically is?
typically 20.
Okay, even for junior high?
No, less for junior high. Sorry, I wasn't sure what
Okay.
you're referring to.
I'm sorry.
No, junior high is 10,
Like
12.
10, 12?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Me too.
Mission
Okay,
accomplished.
thank
I
you.
think that was the
Sounds
goal,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Like,
the goal, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
perfect.
So work on getting it in the budget.
Thank you, guys. Any other questions? Any questions about anything?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good job.
Looks like next is enrollment report.
Yeah, enrollment report, if you notice, we're down one student from last month, so I hope everybody has their eye out for that one student we're lost somewhere, but other than that, no significant changes.
I'll keep looking for him, please.
Will do. I'm gonna bring in the Wonder Dog, Brooklyn, and get her on the trail.
Sounds good. Mr. Petrie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Minnick. Before we dive into the reports, just a couple things to note, and even before I move into this, just one more thing I'd like to say about the audit, and I know I have said this before, but I want to say it again publicly. What the board doesn't understand that happened during this audit, we switched to a new financial system as of July 1st. What that also meant is that we took all of our monthly actuals out of Alio, put them into FIS, and then did our end of year for all the audit work out of FIS, out of the new system. So not only and I just want to say thank you to Missy and Sally for this, but not only were they gathering things for the audit, but they were also doing it in a brand new system that we were learning as we went. So just a public shout out to Missy Long and Sally Schaefer in the business office for doing great work with tough circumstances this year. You kind of get comfortable when you're used to a system and, I know this report they need, that report they need. We didn't know where to get any of that stuff for the auditors this year, but, and that's kind of something that happens behind the scene that you don't usually hear about, but again, shout out to those two for that. Additionally, I have, just to throw out there tonight, I have some new budget status reports that I put out there. I don't know if you really like the old ones or if they're very informative. These are actually budget status reports that I am pulling from Forecast 5. Maybe you like them better, maybe you don't. I gave you both this month, so it's there just the way you're always used to seeing it. There's also an additional attachment there on those budget status reports that say new. So whatever you guys, if you want to give me some feedback on that, be happy to do it however you prefer to see it. But I thought there was a little more information, a little better information, a little more relevant information in the Forecast 5 report than getting into the tedious account line by account line. But yeah, shoot me an email, give me some feedback on that, let me know if you like it, don't like it, and we'll go from there. So you can see in the budget status reports, we're in line with previous years, and again, as we've said all along, as you heard in my report last week, in the audit report, ESSER just has things not stable when it comes to looking at percents and trends. So what I would tell you to look at, here's what I think is important. If you look at the revenue budget summary, look at your local and state percentages year to year, and you'll see we are right there. Federal is all over the place, that's all ESSER. But if you compare your local and state percentages, we're in real good shape there. So again, revenue and expense there, new reports for you. Same information, just a different way of presenting it. Let me see what else I have here. Okay, I'll continue on here. So general fund, nothing new or different with how that's reported. We mentioned before that all of our money was pulled back to Mid-Penn Bank. Doing very well there now, and we're very happy with how that's performing. Capital reserve, as Z mentioned in the audit report, that's kind of holding steady there at 3.5. Not a lot of excitement happening in capital reserve. Capital projects, you can see that continuing to decrease as we continue making payments on the building project. So nothing there that we don't expect. The food service account, we have the report, Lori's report from nutrition, and we have their operating expenses and also our accounting of the food service funds. So you see there at the end of March, we have about $143,000. Keep in mind that purchase, Danny, what was the equipment purchase? 50, 60,000, something like that? Yeah.
63,000.
Right, so we'll be, it'll come out of that, which is okay, that we're gonna carry a lower balance there. Every year, I have to fill out a report that you have to give a corrective action if you have more than 3 months, I think it is, 3 months operating expense in your food service fund. So we're okay. And as you can see in the audit report, as long as it's self-sustaining, I don't care if the balance is less, as long as we're, not running it dry, so. And then the last thing I want to mention, again, this is from a result from the audit. The student activity accounts, we're doing some work with this. Up until this point, the ladies in the offices kind of did their own individual thing with an Excel spreadsheet. But what came out of the audit this year is we really need to be accounting for those funds in our financial system because they are considered custodial funds. Not that we're controlling them. Keep in mind, this is money that kids raise through fundraisers and things like that. But because it's under our umbrella, under our tax ID, we need to have an accounting of the funds in our system. There are 2 different funds that are added. One for the elementary, there's 2 accounts over there. One new fund, I think it's 81, and then a fund 21 for the middle and high school. And the difference between the elementary, why they have different fund numbers is because at the elementary, the decisions of what happens to the money there's not as much student input into that. It's more, the adults having the funds and kind of directing the fund usage. Whereas when you get into the middle and high school, then your students, your clubs do have more of a say of, their fundraisers and what they want to expend money on. So there's 2 different new types of funds there, an 81 and a 21, both custodial accounts. So they are in our system now, which means that you will see a report like we have tonight. Actually, I think I had that backwards. 21 is the elementary fund. You can see if you open that report, the Camp Hebron account, and then the elementary activity account. And then if you flip to Fund 81 for middle school and high school, you can see there's really only 3 clubs that have money in the middle school currently, and then all of your high school clubs. The numbers at the top are graduating class of, that's what those funds are there at the top. So what will happen, because we had to catch up for the year, we weren't entering this at the beginning of the year, we had to catch up. You'll see the revenues and expenses in the adjustment column currently. It'll probably work that way until we hit next year, and then you'll start seeing the monies in the clubs going into the receipts and expenditure columns. So we're kind of manually forcing the matter right now and putting them in through adjustments. And what we want to do is get the office secretaries, the ladies that are putting these reports together, get them trained in FIS and actually have them do all their processing through FIS. So a little bit of training there. We can print all their checks here out of the business office printer. And so we will, moving forward, have a full accounting of this. The other change I'm asking them to make is the high school and middle school activity accounts are still with Truist, which means that Stacy and Tammy, every time they have cash to deposit, need to run to Elizabethville or Halifax. So I have asked them, I kind of directed it, I guess, that we want to move those to Mid-Penn Bank. I have gone ahead and I have those activity accounts set up at Mid-Penn Bank. We're not going to move the money and flip the switch until the end of the school year. So for next school year, we'll move the money. We'll get the ladies trained over the summer, and be operating in FIS and have all of our activity accounts in Mid-Penn Bank. So just trying to update some things there. And any questions on that one, because that's totally new and different, but again, something that came out of our audit.
Well, that won't then show up on like the bills and disbursements, so it automatically, because that's then this.
It won't show up on the general fund bills and disbursements. In theory, we could run a report in FIS that would give you the bills and disbursements, but understand that these are two separate funds. Your general fund is fund number 10. This is 81 and 21. So, but with it being in FIS, we could certainly run any report needed, which again will make things easier come audit time, because the auditors do need some reports on those funds. So,
And now this is student raised money. And
Yeah,
so forth.
this-
I understand it's not public money, so we don't necessarily need to for the sake of transparency. But, would it be best practice to have that? I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
I don't think that's common.
Okay.
And
Whatever best practices, or.
Yeah, it's kind of their money and they do it. We're just having an account of it. We're not approving it, disproving it. That's done at the building level with their club advisor and the principal. And in fact, the signers on the checks for the activity account are the building principal and the building secretary. So our signatures are not even on those checks. But it will be run through our system just so we have an accounting of it. But I don't anticipate, I did not anticipate bringing additional reports to the board other than to show you what the balances are in those clubs, which is what we've done forever.
Okay. Other questions?
So just back on the capital project fund,
Yes.
that 4.2 and change,
Mm-hmm.
that is, that fund balance, that is equal to funds owed on contract.
That's the balance of your bond proceeds.
Right,
Um,
which equals what we owe.
I'm glad, no,
Okay.
no. I'm glad you said that, because I had another item. If you scroll back up to line 14, Business Office Financial Report, I would have completely forgotten this if you didn't ask that question. So if you look at the third bullet under items to note, as we continue to talk about things like playground equipment and furniture and things like that for the new building, we have a contingency fund built into the budget for the project. So I got an update of this, as of April 4th, whenever that was, last week, you can see the numbers that we have there. Originally in the budget, we had 678. The CO costs are change orders. There's still, as you can read there, some under review. It may fluctuate a little bit, but as of April 4th, we were looking at having 593 available. If all goes smoothly, no more change orders, no more big things happening. And I think I had mentioned previously, I thought this was around the 500-ish mark, and yeah, it looks like we're at 593 as of April 4th. So keep your fingers crossed, no big change orders or catastrophic things happening. But that would be the money that we could consider using for, again, we are considering using the money for the playground equipment that we already approved. Furniture, which I know is a hot topic right now, we would look at that. And as you know, we also have some other projects that we're looking at on the school campus relating to basketball, tennis, that kind of thing as well. So again, another potential use there for that. But to answer your question, no, that money is not what we owe. It's what we owe less this contingency money. Does that make sense?
Other questions? I'd entertain a motion to approve 14.1 through 14.6, which is all the financials. Mr. Enders, second, Mr. Diffendorfer. Any question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Bills and disbursements, we have 320 through 49 disbursements. Anyone want anything handled separately? I'd entertain a motion to approve. Mrs. Mongol, second, Mr. Enders. Any question? Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Do we have to activate the mic?
Do we,
Do we have to activate the speaker?
Yeah,
She-
did the speaker
it's
get
not-
asleep?
It's not on the board anymore.
Oh. did we, okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. So did we actually lose her or just?
It timed out. Just try again.
Sydney, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, your vote on the bills and disbursements, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next item, and this is informational. This is, we have first reading of several policies. They're all listed there. As we kind of talked about in the past, we're trying to start moving on policy updates. And general practice, which is not exactly how we've done things in the past, is you put the policies on the agenda for a first read-through, and then next month we'll have a second read-through, which is when we actually vote on them, and that's when they will get updated. So that will kind of be how we progress forward as we move through what we do and what PSBA does and what we do with them.
So as the chairperson for the Educational Policies Committee, that's a really long list of policies. So is there another committee meeting? Is it just all 9 of us read them and show up with our questions and concerns and have a discussion with Mr. Harris or Gareth? Or like what does that look like? Because we've never done it like this before, so.
So someone can tell me if I'm wrong. I think how it should work is they would go to you guys first. You guys would review them in policy.
So, okay, but all of us have them to review, but not all of us are on the Educational Policies Committee. So if you read them and you're not on the committee, how do you go about getting your concerns to me? Like,
So
what does that look like?
So we may have done this slightly out of order. Again, they should have
I
come
think probably.
to you, and then you guys brought them out of committee.
After
and
we-
then we had the first read-through
Yeah.
and the second read-through as a whole board.
Mhm.
So just slightly out of order. So I would say at this point, if we have questions on the policies, do we bring them to you, or do we just bring them right to Dr. Toph?
That's a great
These
question.
have, first of all, these have already been reviewed by the solicitor's office. Everything you see here, any of those changes that are recommended would be made for the voting meeting in May for you to vote on. And the way that I've seen it in the past is the first reading. If there are additional questions, maybe a second reading if needed. But that any of those concerns on that would then come to me, which then I can bring back to the committee so that, at least you have a way to funnel your questions to.
So in this case, if we have comments at this point, send them to Brian to get
Please do.
route it back to Neil if necessary. moving forward, I think we really need to go back to the structure of the stuff comes from you guys to the whole board for a board first read-through, first month, second month would be the second read-through.
I mean, that's what I thought was
Yeah.
happening after our discussion at the policy committee, but then they all showed up here for every.
Well,
And it just seems like a lot, if people, if 9 people have questions about 42 policies, that's a lot for Dr. Toth or anyone to try and organize in a way for anybody to handle. So it seems, to me, like it's a better use of our time to stick with the committee structure and have 4 people weed through their questions and filter out like we used to. But I
think that is what we want to do.
mean,
That-
if
that'll be the
everybody
first-
wants to see all of it and do all of that reading, that's more
Well, we're
power.
going to anyway.
We are going to do it, but
We're going to anyway, except now add punctuation or misspell, whatever. Things will get weeded out before it ever gets to that point.
Right.
yeah.
The obvious questions.
Sure, you're
should
still
get
gonna
weeded
have to
out.
read them,
That's-
right,
I
but
would
there are
appreciate it.
things that we talked about, like making sure that it fits Millersburg versus the big umbrella
And
that
that's what
came from
that's what your
PSBA,
committee
which
should be
is-
doing before it comes to our first read.
Before it gets to, yeah.
Okay,
And let me put the 000 policies are the ones that are just have to do with the overall board governance. So a lot of what you see there are changes that are updates, mostly in language from Stock and Leader's office, mostly in legal citations. So those are gonna stay, obviously. The uncompensated leave policies, and everybody gets a chance now to see exactly what changes are being made. So, the whole board gets to see that at this point. And certainly, if you have the questions, certainly send them to me. I'll be glad to get with Tennille and Stock and Leader and clear up any of your questions or concerns. If there are none, then for the next meeting, we can actually have these all cleaned up and ready for approval. There will be, if we need to, Tennille, I'll certainly get a hold of you and we could have another policy meeting if there's that many questions or concerns. If not, I'll tell you what, I've read through all of the changes made by Stock and Leader. And of course, there are solicitors. They would have to defend us if it was on a policy that we had some kind of litigation. So I trust them with it, with those changes. I didn't see anything that jumped out that was not a practice of the Millersburg Area School District. But maybe somebody here would, and please send that to me. Like I said, I can get with Tennille. If we need a meeting, we can get a meeting.
yeah, and I think that maybe maybe this is just the teacher in me, but I feel like some direction on what you want that to look like policy number and title, and then your concern. So it's not trying to figure out.
Yeah, the number would be very helpful.
What policy is this dealing with? Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Mr. Harris, any problem with what we've talked about?
No.
Okay,
So these have or have not already gone through?
they have.
They have.
No, the ones
They've
on
gone through
tonight's agenda have gone from PSBA to solicitor to all of
No,
us.
they went from Dr. Toth to solicitor to all of us.
But they had, to answer your question,
Not
it
to
has
the
not gone
policy.
through the educational.
They have not gone through committee.
Correct.
So what you're proposing is goes to committee, first reading, second reading, which makes all the sense in the world.
Which is, yes, except not this time,
Because we're already kind of
Because
out, the cat's already out of the bag. If there's no reason, if you have questions, get them to Dr. Toth. If we have a ton of questions, we can send them back to committee. If there's not a ton of questions, they should be on the agenda for next time. Make sense? Okay. But yeah, because we haven't started getting stuff from PSBA yet. But yeah, all of that should be routed through the policy
Yes,
committee.
and you're right, that is the intent. is to get them from PSBA, go to solicitor, go to committee, and then to the board.
So at what point does, okay.
Go ahead.
PSBA is starting the process with their standard language. It's going to you to make sure that you're copacetic with it.
Well, I would kind of modify, I think it should go to the policy committee after PSBA. If they make changes to it, it goes to stock and leader to make sure it's still like legal. And then it would come to the committee.
Right, I mean, that's what we've done in the past. In the past, the PSBA recommendations came to the Educational Policy Committee. The four of us sat and reviewed them and said, we don't like this words, we think this should be worded like this. And then those notes are taken back to stock and leader, and they're reviewed there, and if they like them, they come to us as a board to vote on and approve. Right now, currently, what is on the agenda has been PSBA recommended, Dr. Toth approved, and Stock and Leader approved. There has been no formal sit-down with the Educational Policy Committee regarding the PSBA changes to vet out any issues that the four people on that committee may have.
So if I can jump in for a second.
Please.
The SBA creates statewide policies. They go through and they look at what does school code say, so we're gonna create what is a standard looking policy that's just gonna be going out to every single school district. At the bottom of almost every single policy, it says, please ask your solicitor for advice on all of these policies. Go back through it so that they can review it, make sure that it fits with your district, and it fits with our legal interpretation of the law. So when we receive a policy, we review it, and then if we know your actual practices, then that's the view that we're gonna be looking at it, as well as we're gonna be taking a look at every single legal citation, make sure what PSBA is saying is what the law actually says. Sometimes we disagree with what PSBA says, and when we do that, we will either rewrite the policy or we'll put in a comment saying this is what PSBA says, however, this is what the law says, and this is what our interpretation of that law says.
So at what point is our current, which was kind of the question is, our current practices that may be unique or whatever in Millersburg, at what point do they get reincorporated into the boilerplate PSBA language?
So from the way I'm hearing it, it's gonna go from PSBA to the policy committee, and then the policy committee is gonna take what is Millersburg's practices and put it into that policy, and then Stock and Leader is gonna receive that with Millersburg's practices in it, and then we're gonna do the legal review and then send it back. So that way, it's no longer really the PSBA boilerplate, it's more of the modified version.
Right, and so that work obviously was not done by committee with this reading, that work was done by Dr. Toth.
So you took them, you didn't use PSBA templates here, you used what we had and your experience and worked on them, correct?
Yes.
So PSBA hasn't been involved yet?
Not
Directly?
directly, no. We haven't gotten a batch from PSBA. Bobby did have some that were from other districts, that it's pretty common to compare what we have with other districts that have more modern policies. But that's it. Now, this batch is what was on our books, updated, and as I said, you can see on the attachments, recommendations where if you see AH edits, that means Stock and Leader made a suggestion for an edit. And some things on there, they say, although, I just read it, although PSBA took this out, we disagree with that, we recommend you keep it in.
So in our last voting meeting, we voted to pay PSBA to review all of our policies.
No, that's tonight.
Yep, it's coming up.
Okay, so if
In
we're
our
going to, if what's on the agenda for tonight gets passed, we're paying PSBA to review all of our policies, which will include these that you've already done?
No,
I
these are
don't-
done.
I'm so,
Well, there's so many, there's
I don't
the
understand
zeros,
what's
there's the 100s, the 200s, the 300s, 400s.
so
and
we're
on.
not paying PSBA to review every single board policy that Millersburg has?
all of the other ones, other than what's approved tonight, yes, we are.
What about the zeros is what he's saying.
And we're not approving these today, it's next.
No.
Correct.
Oh, we're starting the
This
process.
is it's a process, yeah.
So,
But we're doing one section different than the others.
right, which is what, that's where I, like,
Yeah. in
does
com-
that make sense? Is
I-
that, does
I
like?
suggested to do the zeros in committee because they're not a huge issue. You know, it's not like we're dealing with, what are we doing with students when this situation happens? What are we doing with an employee if this happens? And that's where the Millersburg way comes into the policy. These are more organizational items. They're I don't want to say boilerplate, they're almost more standard, but with some changes by our solicitor that would be benefiting the district. So that's why I do these. We will get in batches from PSBA, all of the 100s policies, all of the 200s, the 300s, and we will do one batch at a time and be able to sit down with those then and go through those and put in, as Chris said, the Millersburg way of doing things, have them review them, say, hey, PSBA has this, it took it out, we believe it should be in. I'd say Stock and Leader says it's in, it should be in.
Okay, so I think I was misunderstanding at the Educational Policy Committee what PSBA was doing.
Yeah, they're gonna take all the other ones.
Like, they were starting at the very beginning and doing all of them. So, Mr. Harris, like, you don't see an issue with PSBA tackling the rest of them, but not all of them?
So I can't speak on behalf of PSBA, I don't know exactly what it is that they're doing behind the scenes. But my understanding would be that they would issue them in batches, so they would be coming in. I can explain a little bit better if we can go into an executive session to receive some legal advice.
Okay.
If that's appropriate.
Well, we can do that at the end of the meeting.
We can do that at the end of the
Kind
meeting.
Okay.
We're not
That's
voting
fine.
on this at this point anyhow, yeah.
So, I remember in committee meeting,
Mm-hmm.
it was, these here are like the basics, straight down the line of what everybody has to abide by. And we just throw whatever tweaks that we want in, or what you went over. But the ones that PSBA are, these are the money ones, the ones that are so outdated that we gotta get updated and get in.
Yeah.
But these here, just like the basics, is what he's saying. And aren't
Yes.
gonna affect law ones, really.
Yeah, so if we want to get technical, your 000s are considered your procedures, they're not even considered board policies. They're how your board governs and they operate. So this talks about what does meeting notice look like, what types of votes require a 2/3 vote versus a majority vote. So these are technically board procedures, 000s, which are specific to your district, specific to how your board operates.
So if we could do two things at this point. We could send the bunch back and have a policy committee meeting to go through them and bring them back out. Or we could review them as a board, and if there are no issues with them, we would be able to vote on them next month. I'm really okay doing either, whatever we're comfortable with. And especially with what Mrs. Model's comfortable with, since she's the policy chair.
Well, I mean, I misunderstood what, I was assuming that we were gonna be voting tonight to pay PSBA to do, and like, we just did this, so then I was confused. I think, if everybody is fine reading, what is there, 14 of them here?
Mhm.
And making sure that if you have questions or concerns, you get them to Dr. Toth timely and specifically, so he's not trying to muddle through words that he doesn't know what policy you're referencing for this first batch. Like, I am not, it doesn't matter. I am okay now that I think I understand what I was supposed to understand after last
It's okay,
week's
we'll get some more
meeting.
clarification then from,
Yeah, so that's fine, if everybody, but again, like, if it's you have to read them and you have to do your homework, so to speak.
which we should all be doing.
Everyone should do that
for-
anyway, I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay. All right, everybody's cool? We'll move on to consent action items. These are the things that were discussed last week. Anybody want anything handled separately before we try and do them before we have a motion for all of them as a consent actions?
Are we gonna pull 17.6 and discuss that before we do anything?
So we can absolutely either pull it and discuss it separately, or we can have it as the group and still discuss it, but then it will get voted on as part of the group. Which would you prefer?
Why is everybody looking at me?
Well, that has to do with the furniture with the elementary school is.
I think there needs to be a discussion had about.
So let's pull 17.6 separately. So let's do the other items. So 17.1 through 17.5, and then 17.7 through 10. Anybody need anything else? Are we good with consent for all of those? And are you good, Eric?
I just pulled, I mean, it's going to change the numbers that you just announced, but I just went into the agenda and pulled it out of the consent items and put it down in other.
So 17.1 through 17.9
Yep.
is what we will vote
Yeah.
on. Okay. I have a motion to approve those. Mr. Enders, second, Mr. Diffendorfer. Any discussion on those items? Not, Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Diffendorfer?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. All right, now 17.6, which was the furniture for elementary. We have a motion on the table to spend up to $100,000.
There isn't a motion.
It's not here?
It got,
Not yet.
Oh, got pulled.
no, the motion got pulled, so you still need a motion.
So we didn't just pull the item out to be handled
Did you
separately?
refresh your screen?
No.
Okay, refresh it and see the number. Down to
18.2.
Other action items.
So now you just need a motion and a second. And then you can
Well,
discuss it.
Should we do 18.1 first?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 18.1 is first, sorry, guys.
You're good.
18.1 is the education, special ed plan. Do I have a motion to approve that? Mrs. Mongold, second, Mr. Enders. Any quick discussion about that? Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Diffendorfer?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
No.
Control it.
You're in timeout, Sid. Bad behavior.
I just sent her an email apologizing for this.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes.
Do we have Sid back?
Yes.
Okay. Is that your vote for 18.1?
It is.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so 18.2 is now furniture for elementary. So we would need, we do have a motion. It's recommended to approve the purchase up to $100,000. We need a motion and a second on that, and then we can discuss it. Mr. Enders, second. Mr. Diffendorfer. Okay. It's open for discussion.
With previous messages today and ongoing messages about getting all the teachers' inputs on they feel they need and what they do not need and what they want to bring over, I think we need to have that put in
So should we,
writing for us, that we see.
so can we ask Ms. Owen what?
Can I ask you? Yeah, what's the question, sorry?
So what, the question is around what has been, like, what information has been got from the teachers so far as to needs and wants?
Sure, so it started out, we actually started talking about this last year with Dr. Petitchnik when we came in. At that time, we weren't sure even if we'd have a budget for furniture, so we didn't want to make promises, obviously, with monies we did not have. Beginning of this year, we started talking a little bit. Dan came over as well and said, we'd be at least able to get teachers' desks, kind of looked at those, and student desks and chairs to replace. A survey started, so when Dan came over, we spoke and started answering some questions on the new building. At that time, I think it was like November-ish, I sent a survey out, Google form, that was an opportunity for every teacher in the building. It's been ongoing, it's in every Friday newsletter that I send out to my entire staff, with the link still, so that we could go through and have all the questions in one place. Now that was just focused on any questions about the new building that they may have. So that we were able, I was answering them in real time as I could, and then Dan and I sat down recently, went through all of them so I can share them out. Because if one person has a question, probably more do. And then we also shared out, once we were knew that we were able to get the teacher desks, chairs, and student desks, send another Google form out that said this one's just for furniture. And so the question went out, your name, your grade or department, what specific items that you currently have in your room that you definitely want us to take over, so that Dan and his team would have that as we're looking at each room. Another question was if, any specific wishes that you might have additionally that you would like to see for your room. Again, without knowing, to be fair with monies, if we could make it happen, we would. But we wanted to be able to have all that, take a look at it collectively. And then there was also another space for additional comments where teachers could put that in. So Dan and I both sat down and looked at all of those together and went over them so that we were able to address anything with staff. And it's shared out every Friday in my newsletter for the last few months.
So I don't think that the issue is the Google form being shared. I think that there is probably some confusion about what could go on the Google form. And I actually saw a picture of the questions that you asked. And I think the second question, while I understand why you worded it the way you did, because
We don't want
it's
any
not like
promises
every
we can't-
teacher
yeah,
can have
yeah,
this
yeah.
much money to
I
spend
wish.
for
I
their
wish.
classroom. I also initially looking at it as a teacher, I don't know that I would have answered that with, I would like desks that have whiteboard tops on them, or this kind of table. In my mind, I would have put, like, when you set up my classroom, can you put my desks in groups of 4 so I don't have to do that in the summer? So I think that there was maybe a little bit of confusion as to how they could fill out that question. So I think based on the concerns that I've heard from teachers at Lankerville, like based on watching the board meeting last week, I think that maybe a new Google form, like if you could create a classroom wish list, what would it look like?
Sure.
With the understanding that like the board is not going to approve brand new everything for everyone.
It'd be great.
But I think that now that teachers know that there might be the opportunity that they can get, like a kidney table that's a whiteboard, take all their student desks over, but maybe an $800 table is not something
Right, in
that's
the budget.
completely out
Sure.
of the question
Sure.
now. So I think that again, last week I was very adamant on having things be equitable. And I really, like, if you were brave enough to put in that second question, well, I'd like 25 new desks, good for you. But there are lots of teachers who we're used to not getting things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And
Everyone
so
just stays
we don't ask for them often. So I think giving teachers the opportunity to voice, like, hey, I would really like this for my,
Yeah.
second grade class or fourth grade class, or even starting some kind of conversation at a faculty meeting, like, okay, fourth grade has all of these things and we don't really like them anymore. And we would like to do, like, maybe there's some just like in-building trading, right? That we just need to let Mr. Troutman and his crew know this isn't going from fourth grade, this is going to first grade now.
Yeah.
To recycle some things that are in good shape, but I think, I don't believe that everybody understood the form to have that opportunity to say, like, I would really like
And I wish
10
everybody
of
came
these
in
or
and-
12 of
and-
these.
And communicated that with me for sure. Part of that conversation was also, like, I know a lot of people have flexible seating, so it was when I said I was getting ready to send it out, like if you want your flexible seating or if that's something you're looking for. So maybe I just didn't communicate it well enough at that faculty meeting, but we can certainly send another one out. I was a little hesitant because I don't know how much monies we have, and I don't want to make promises that we can't keep.
Sure, and I think that it needs to be very clear that it's a wish list,
Yeah.
not a shopping list,
Sure.
right? Like, and I think that maybe if you even attach a dollar amount to it, right? Like, keep your wish list within.
Dan speak on that part.
No, but I'm just saying, like, for a teacher, for me to sit down and say, okay, I'm getting this new classroom. If I had $2,000 for my classroom, how would I spend it? And then we go from there. I think teachers should have the ability to ask for the things that they want, knowing that they might not get all of it, they might not get any of it, but they should have the ability to voice. And I think that it's super important that it's not just teachers. I think it's super important that we consider talking to, the occupational therapist who's used to sharing a closet and having her desk separated by a shower curtain from the person next to her. And you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like Mrs. Clemmer, she might be using things because that's all that there was at Lankerville. And now we have a little bit of whatever that we can do some stuff for our struggling readers that might help them be more successful in the space that she's going to have in this new space. So I'm not trying to create more work for anyone or dream up more dollars than we have, but I really do think that we owe it to our teachers to be able to be heard.
Well, and I would say that I haven't been on the board for a long time, but I have not gotten as much feedback as I did about this, about many other things. I wish I got this kind of feedback about the budget or things like that. But I understand the intentions were great. I understand that the Google forms were sent out and maybe people were afraid to fill them out when if you could design your ideal room, what would it be? That wasn't the question, but if you had a wish list or what would you like moved over? Maybe people were intimidated to not be too needy, someone else needs it more than I need it. Whatever that looks like, I don't know where that communication breakdown happened. It's not important to me. I think we just need to kind of start over, wash our hands and say, and I agree with Tennille, and that number isn't a real number, but it's if you had $3,000 to spend in your classroom, because then anybody in that position is going to say, okay, his desks are pretty good, my chair literally has a wheel fall off all the time, I need that chair more. They'll prioritize their chair over maybe some scuffed desks. On the other hand, if the kids' chairs are terrible, they will prioritize those. I think something where every teacher needs to answer that question of, what would you spend that money on, and get a list of.
Right, and if the answer is like, I have everything in my classroom that I love for 4th grade or 2nd grade or whatever it is, like, great, that's awesome, because I know that there are teachers that have done donors choose, right? Like my own classroom, my classroom set of graphing calculators did not come from my district, it came from a donors choose that I filled. So like, I'm sure that teachers have things, like, not everybody wants to replace all of their things, I just don't know that everyone was given the opportunity to voice the things that they would like to replace.
Or felt comfortable to do so. I've had employees that have been with me for 20 years and they use the oldest office chair in the world. And I've got people that have been there for 2 years that are on their 3rd X chair, whatever. Like, you have people that are a little more needy than others or a little more vocal about what they need than others. I don't want it to be a squeaky wheel getting the grease situation. I think, like you said last week, equity, everybody has an opportunity. If they need something, they should get it. If they don't need it, it shouldn't be foisted upon them.
So do we have thoughts about what happens with that list when it comes in and everyone did spend $3,000? Like, so how do we have any thoughts on the administration then prioritizing that list?
And that list has nothing to do with this list, is that correct?
It might not.
Because this list has a list.
This list does have a list.
They would be outside of what's already
So this
earmarked.
sounds like.
I mean, so again, like, quick math, right? There's 6 grades, each grade level has 3 teachers, that's 18 plus a couple extras times 3,000, like, we're talking $54,000. We just said there's 100,000 minimum.
Designated to these things in the list, right?
But maybe not all of, like, maybe the art teacher just wants new stools and not tables.
These are from a walkthrough.
They, right, the items,
We spoke to these teachers.
Yeah,
We have
right,
individually.
and,
For 3
right,
hours
so when we
drove
brought
there.
this up last week, this was a walkthrough that Dan and myself and Dr. Toth did, where we went in every room, spoke to these teachers, laid eyes on everything, and said, hey, we know we need to buy this to move into the new building. This stuff is bad and we need to replace it. And so that's what we went and got pricing on. That's the 100,000 for, hey, we know we need to buy this. Now, there's some things I think it's smart to standardize on. You know, I'm not saying a kidney table with a whiteboard top is one that needs to be standardized. But when you're talking about teacher desks, teacher chairs, like there's some things that we want standardized. And I think that's the list you're looking at here. If you go down the road of the wish list, I don't know how you check quality of what you're getting there. We certainly don't want to spend money on things that aren't going to last. So I think they're two different things, to Tim's point. What we shared, we laid eyes on, we said, we know we need these things new. What you want to do as far as allowing teachers to request things beyond that, we can certainly have that conversation. But and even the timing of it, to be able to move into the new building, we certainly want to get these things ordered so that it can be here and be ready to go. You want to talk about kidney tables or whiteboard tables or whatever later, that's fine.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know, like, if someone walked into my classroom, 4th period, in the middle of me teaching calculus and said, what do you need for a new classroom? I wouldn't be able to give my actual real thoughts, especially if I didn't know that conversation was going to be happening, or even a possibility moving into a new classroom. And then after, right, I mean, I certainly wouldn't stand in front of my students in my classroom who sit at those desks and chairs every day and be like, well, these desks really suck. Like, I would not say anything in my classroom to put down the place that I work in front of my students. And so I think, while I hear what you're saying, we walked into every classroom, sure. But if a teacher, for lack of a better word, was ambushed with this question, what do you need in the new building? And there's students in their classroom and they didn't have time to prepare that answer, truly think about the things that they would want if they had opportunity to get new or request new. And to answer that question in front of students in their room, I don't think that's fair.
Well, can I ask, so have leading up to the point when you went, these teachers had this, like, all this time to be thinking about this? Or did we just quickly come and ask that question?
When was the Google form, the beginning of the year, when Dr. Pete
Well,
was still here?
the latest Google.
6 months?
The latest survey went out, or at least answers on it, because I read it, was March 15th.
I was gonna say mid-March.
So it was after we went through. Did we go over, Brian, on the spur of a day? Yes, we did on the day. But I guarantee you, no teacher was pressured. No teacher was ambushed. It was very casual conversation. It didn't matter who was in that room. I think the kids all know we're moving. The kids all know, gee, this chair is not good anymore. It needs to go. And they were very open to talk to us. Where there's some, I know there was at least 1 or 2 teachers that were absent that day that we went over. But with the follow-up survey that Amber sent out, gee, I've never known her just say, in my short time working with her, I've never known her to say, I'm not talking to you, you know, or I can't answer, I'm not gonna answer your question. She's there to answer those things and to let them know, but it was a very casual walk through that day.
I'm not saying that Amber in any way like tried to backdoor people or that teachers were ambushed on purpose. I'm saying now that this has come to light from our conversation last week at our board meeting, I now think that there are teachers that didn't even realize that they had questions that they wanted to ask. And I think that it is only fair that we give them the opportunity to ask those questions. We have the ability to say, not now, maybe over the next 3 years, we can slowly start to replace these things and build some things into our budget. I am in no way saying that we should turn around and spend $500,000 to give every teacher their dream classroom in this new building. But I do not believe that every person understood the communication in the way that it was intended. And the 9 of us are the people who ultimately say yes or no to purchasing things and paying bills and spending $17 million for that new building. And we are the ones that are going to have to answer questions. And I was very, very uncomfortable with trying to answer questions that I got between last week and this week. And I would like to not be put in that situation, if at all possible.
Can I ask, but you said part of this deal also is a time crunch as far as getting this stuff ordered?
If we want it before the beginning of school. Correct.
So if we like
But,
put off another month or two, then like, we can't be guaranteed that stuff would be here
Depends
on what it is.
on what it is. I can't stand here until things are finalized, till, you know, but don't want to delay if you want to assure that it's going to be here for the beginning of school.
Right, I think the list that's in front of you is really a list of items that we currently have at Lankerville that we don't want to bring to the new building because of their current condition, right? Like if that's a way to look at it.
So
Has nothing to do with what people want or a wish list. We're saying, yeah, this stuff is bad. We don't want to move it into the new building.
So this is something we could approve this, and then we can, to make sure this stuff is here, and then we can, 'cause I agree with Tennille on that part of it, so we can.
Right, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't
two ends
approve this
to-
list to make sure that
Right.
the start of the school year, all teachers have the same desks and teacher chairs. But I don't think that was the information that we were given last week.
Well,
That's not how I interpreted
So what-
the
what I'm-
information that we were given.
Last week was, this is the furniture order.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we could move this to a vote, we're ready, we could be ready to vote on this. But the request still is for a new, more clear survey, really asking, you know, what do
So we
you
went to
want for
wish
your
list.
classroom?
Are we giving any dollar amount per?
Here's the other concern though,
That's how this
too.
works,
The
it's
question
lower.
that I guess I would have for the board, again, okay, you approved, we got $100,000 to spend. Are we supposed to give every teacher a Sears and Roebuck catalog and you open it up and pick, or
No,
like,
This
again,
would just
if
be
we
on
want
this,
teachers'
right?
chairs?
we're giving you guys the authorization to purchase these things, correct?
The deal was, we're talking about approving this tonight, this right here, and then going back and say, okay, if you had a wish list, if you had something, not guaranteeing they're gonna get it, like two separate things going on.
Like a requisition that they do every year.
Right, I mean, that's
They do that
normal
every year,
budgeting
and
every
then
year.
requisition.
Oh, okay.
These
What do you-
items don't look like a wish list item, they look like basic needs.
Right, what are you
That's what
looking
these
for?
are, in my opinion, also, these are the bare bones, basic needs.
So we also discussed, you know, getting two versions of these items, getting a proposal for these items, not just saying these items and spend up to 100. That wasn't in the work group. I was not in favor of that. I'm still not necessarily in favor of saying, you know, spend up to 100 and fill it with this, because then, you know, where does that go? You know, Dan, you were saying that might be in the neighborhood of $60,000 or $70,000, but I'm sure you could very easily spend 100 if.
Could,
If
depending
you
on
tell
the
Phillips-
quality, depending on the
Right.
quality, again,
Right.
that's one thing that we wanted to look at is stuff that was gonna last more than 5 or 10 years and be in good
Right.
shape. Again, had 3 mil paint on instead of just a 1 mil paint, it's gonna get scratched very easily and so forth. So we were focused more on the quality, getting quality stuff. And again, certainly the board's wishes, we could get a little bit lesser quality. Again, what you're comfortable with, that's again, my conversation last week. Hey, this is what we were looking at, this is what we were kind of eyeing up, 98, I think it came in at 98.5. And again, until we say, and that was.
You did get a
month ago.
proposal for that.
Yeah, that was Philip's office, is where that proposal was. Yeah, yeah. Again, you go with company B, Canners or Quill. I got other people that I was requesting prices from. Now, again, even looking at it, like the quality, they're pricing it for the price. Like, dude, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for something of quality is where we were trying to focus. When I was making that, yeah. Again, if the board directs us or directs me to, hey, that's.
Okay, I didn't realize we were that close in, I didn't remember hearing that we already had a solid proposal of 98.5.
It's a quote, it's
For that
not
list.
nailed down. He said, once you decide, then we're gonna, I'll give you a formal quote. But yeah, 90 is extremely close, is what his words were to
Okay.
the Aaron at Philip's office.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that is the quote for quality equipment and these numbers that are on the sheet in front of us.
Correct. Yeah.
Which the art teacher and kindergarten, first grade teachers had input in.
The kindergarten and first grade teachers, yes, absolutely. The art teacher, when we went, go ahead.
I spoke to her
Yeah.
just on Monday morning, actually, and she said, yeah, can I see the chairs? And absolutely, you can see them, you can have an opinion on them, absolutely. Again, I want that quality chair. Will the top be a different color, a different material? Maybe, again, 98,000, give or take. But absolutely, again, let's make sure it gets approved here, Dawn. I don't want to, again, get your hopes up, this is what I want, and we're not supportive of that.
It was fairly evident when we walked in the art room and looked at the stools and the tables that were there, that they're in poor
She
condition.
takes them home, her father welds them.
Yeah.
Right.
The rings on them and stuff. She said, my father, for the past couple of years, her father is a welder, and he welds these chairs, so. Again, that was one of the things that we saw when we walked through, as soon as we walked in. Oh,
And it's one of those items, like, we are not bringing this stuff over to the new building.
Pretty
So
much.
it was put on the list of needed items, but
Which I'm not questioning that, I was questioning to make sure that the people that are actually using the items, it's up to what they want to use to teach their students. You know, the design of the table, the height of the table, the angle of the, whatever, you know.
Yeah, and that's
She's the one that
art
has to
only
teach.
for the tables. Yeah. Student chairs.
So
for
what I'm
K&M.
getting is, in you guys' opinions with the teachers and everything, this is what is decided that is the worst in elementary school and needs to be brought over here. Don't bring it over junk. Put new in right away and get rid of that stuff that's no good.
yeah, I mean, you can certainly move the poor condition things over here, but you're probably just gonna end up moving it right back out again. Like, these were the items that we saw that, yes, it's time, Millersburg, you need to replace these items. We don't wanna haul this old worn out stuff over to a new building.
Right, so,
Has nothing to do with, individual teacher wants, needs. It's like, this is basic stuff.
all right, so that's the motion on the table. The second, related, unrelated, is asking for the survey. Did we feel comfortable even giving them a dollar amount, or just asking them for the things that they think would make their classroom?
Can we really give them a dollar amount?
I don't think we
I don't
can.
think you can, because we don't know how much we would have to
Stuff is.
spend, correct?
So if they need something, it's time to speak up for a
Right.
major piece.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think that's the
way- because
survey.
We wouldn't have all, yeah, at least, I don't know all of us, but multiple people wouldn't have contacted multiple of us if there weren't still questions remaining. So to my teachers, my teaching, I appreciate what you do. Please speak up if you need something. Now's the
Right.
time to say it. So whether that's a Google form or an email to administration, whatever that is, we need to gather that information.
Right.
Dan double check to see the need of it, or maybe it's things that could be repaired or whatever, and then come back with a second proposal would be my thought.
So we have, but we're voting tonight on this one, that is the second one. I like the idea of a survey, Ms. Owen, too. And obviously the teachers can reach out other ways, but a survey
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, so if we're ready to vote? Mr. Petrie.
Okay. Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Diffenderfer?
Yes.
Mr. Enders?
Yes.
Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Mungold?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. All right, board member sharing.
I have a couple things. I just wanted to say thank you for the frequent social media posts. It's great to see the students, particularly the students that don't participate in extracurricular activities, get recognized. I know the middle school, Mr. Hunsinger, does a great job with the, I'm not gonna get it right, like caught you being kind or whatever.
The positive office referrals.
Positive office referrals, yes, so I think that's great. I have 2 middle schoolers and I love seeing students be recognized with positive office referrals who sometimes aren't always students that you hear of in the most positive light. They struggle in the classroom, they aren't always the most well-behaved, but when they're caught doing something good, they're being recognized for it, which is good. That means we're doing PBIS as it's intended, right? We're recognizing positive behaviors to hopefully encourage them to continue doing those positive behaviors. So I just wanted to say thank you for those social media posts. Also the informational posts. I know I've seen the purple heads up for the 17th. That's great. So parents can also have some time to help make sure that their students who want to participate are able to participate without a scramble and fighting on a Tuesday morning before work because the purple shirt is in the laundry or shoved under the bed, those sorts of things. The last meeting, I forgot to mention the archery banquet. The food, we had it here at the high school cafeteria. The cafeteria food service ladies prepared it for us. It was a fantastic meal. They did a wonderful job. So thank you for that. It was great. And I know lots of sports teams often take their banquets outside of Millersburg. And so it was great. And I just wanted to throw that out there for everybody to hear. The food was delicious. The kids had a great time. And they love seeing those cafeteria ladies' faces outside of the school day. So that was awesome, and thanks to Coach Whitman and Coach Al, and I know they have a pretty ferocious team of archery parents behind them to help put all of that together. So I just wanted to say thanks for that, and just put the plug out there for spring concerts coming up.
Thank you. Others? If not, President's report. We did have an executive session tonight prior to the meeting at 6 o'clock to talk about HR and legal issues. And just, we are still in the superintendent search. I know we haven't talked about it in a while. We are continuing to work with candidates and move that process forward. I'm sure the people who are in the buildings know there were a couple candidates here last week for some walkthroughs, so that's exciting. So we are continuing that just to give the public a little update that it is still ongoing. We like Dr. Toth, but we don't want him here forever. So.
Appreciate it. Here's your coat, what's your hurry?
It's not, we're not there yet, we're not there yet.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, so I think that's all I have, so we're gonna, after we adjourn, we're gonna go into exec session for a discussion of legal matter, but I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Here.